My sister set her wedding the same day as mine, so I sent her fiancé the truth. My golden child sister copied my wedding date to ruin my day." That sentence hung in the air like smoke after a fire, thick and suffocating. Our parents laughed when Madison announced it, like it was clever coordination, not calculated cruelty. The restaurant dimmed around us, the candlelight catching the triumph in her eyes. I kept my hand steady, folding my napkin into smaller and smaller squares. "You don't mind, right, Ava?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I smiled once, thin and practiced. Of course not. They mistook my calm for weakness. What they didn't know was that 2 weeks earlier I'd seen her with Logan, her fiancé's brother, pressed against the side of a building downtown, his hands in her hair, her laughter bright and shameless. I had the photos, I had the dates, I had the screenshots of their messages that I'd found on the tablet she left at my apartment. And I had patience, the kind that comes from years of being overlooked, underestimated, erased. 3 months later, on her honeymoon morning, Jacob would receive an envelope that would change everything. But that night at dinner, I simply nodded and let them think they'd won. Before we go any further, if family betrayal and quiet revenge hit close to home, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel. We share real stories about people who were underestimated, overlooked, and then chose themselves. New story every week. You don't want to miss what happens next. Now let's get back to how this all started. The first time I realized I was invisible was at my 10th birthday party. Madison was 7, blonde curls bouncing as she ran through the backyard in a dress our mother had bought her that morning. My cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, sat on the table with 10 candles. When it was time to sing, Madison blew them out before I could take a breath. Everyone laughed. Mom ruffled her hair. "She's just excited," Dad said, not looking at me. I stood there, hands at my sides, learning that my moments could be taken, and no one would stop it. That became the pattern. Madison failing a test meant extra tutoring and rewards for trying. Me acing one meant nothing, just what was expected. When she got into theater in high school, our parents attended every rehearsal, every performance, every cast party. I ran track, qualified for state, and they missed it because Madison had an audition for a commercial she didn't even book. "You understand, right?" Mom said on the phone. I did. I understood that love in our family was conditional, and I didn't meet the conditions. I learned to be small, to need nothing, to celebrate myself in private. At 18, I moved to Seattle for college, putting distance between me and the house that never felt like home. I studied marketing, worked part-time at a bookstore, and built a life where I didn't have to compete for space. Madison stayed close, enrolling at the local community college, living at home, basking in the attention that came so easily to her. Our parents paid her rent when she finally moved out, bought her a car when hers broke down, funded her lifestyle while I worked 2 jobs to cover my loans. When I graduated and got a job at a mid-sized firm downtown, I called to share the news. "That's great, honey," Mom said absently. "Madison just got cast in a local production. We're so proud." I hung up and didn't call back for 3 months. They didn't notice. I met Daniel at a coffee shop near my office. He was kind, steady, the kind of man who listened when I spoke and remembered the small things I mentioned in passing. We dated for 2 years before he proposed on a quiet Sunday morning in our apartment. No grand gesture, just him and me and a simple question. I said yes, and for the first time in my life I felt chosen. Planning the wedding was peaceful. We wanted something small, intimate, just close friends and the people who had actually shown up for us over the years. I picked a date in late September, booked a small venue by the water, and sent save the dates to the short list of people who mattered. My parents were on that list, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe hope, maybe habit. Madison called a week after she received hers. "September 28th, she said. "That's your date, right?" "Yes," I replied, stirring sugar into my tea. "Why?" "Oh, no reason. I'm just planning mine too. Jacob proposed last month." I felt the air shift. "Congratulations," I said, meaning none of it. "Thanks. I'll send you my save the date soon." 2 weeks later, it arrived. September 28th. The same day. The same exact day. I stared at the card. Her name and Jacob's printed in gold script. The venue some grand estate an hour outside the city. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just set it on the counter and made a call. "Mom, did you know Madison set her wedding the same day as mine?" There was a pause. Too long, too careful. "She mentioned it," Mom said finally. I'm sure it was just a scheduling thing. You know how venues book up. She did it on purpose. Ava, don't be dramatic. You can move yours, can't you? Hers is already set, and we've invited so many people. I closed my eyes. No, I'm not moving mine. Well, we can't be in two places at once. I know, I said quietly. I know. When I hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment, the city noise filtering in through the window. The sun was setting, casting everything in amber and shadow. I thought about all the birthdays, all the moments, all the years of being second. Then I opened my laptop and started searching for a private investigator. If Madison wanted to play games, I'd let her. But I'd be playing a different one. The investigator's name was Claire, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. We met at a diner on the edge of the city, rain streaking the windows, the smell of coffee and grease thick in the air. What do you need? She asked, sliding a menu aside. I need to know if my sister is hiding something, I said. Something that would matter to her fiancé. Claire didn't blink. Cheating? Maybe. She pulled out a tablet and a pen. Give me names, addresses, routines. I'll know in 2 weeks. I gave her everything. Madison's apartment, her schedule, Jacob's details, even Logan's name, Jacob's younger brother, who always seemed to hover a little too close at family dinners. Claire took notes, asked a few clarifying questions, then leaned back. You want proof or just confirmation? Proof, I said. Something undeniable. She nodded once. You'll have it. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a message from Claire. Check your email. I opened it on my laptop. Inside were photos, time-stamped and clear. Madison and Logan outside a bar downtown, his arm around her waist. Madison and Logan in his car, parked in a lot, her head on his shoulder. Madison and Logan entering a hotel, separate but synchronized, 30 seconds apart. The last photo was from 2 nights ago. I stared at the screen, my coffee going cold in my hand. The evidence was clean, detailed, impossible to deny. Claire had done her job. I forwarded the email to a private folder, labeled it clearly, and closed the laptop. The rain outside had stopped. The street below glittered under the lights. Somewhere across the city, Madison was probably planning centerpieces, choosing flowers, pretending her life was perfect. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. That night, I told Daniel everything. He listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from surprise to something colder. What are you going to do? He asked. Wait, I said. Until the right moment. He took my hand. You're sure? I nodded. I've been sure my whole life. They just never noticed. The weeks leading up to the wedding were strange, like living in 2 timelines at once. In one, I was planning my small ceremony, confirming details with our officiant, choosing a dress that felt like me, simple, elegant, unburdened. In the other, I was watching Madison's updates on social media, the engagement photos, the dress fittings, the countdowns. Our parents posted constantly, gushing over every detail of her day. Mine was never mentioned. I didn't reach out. I didn't ask if they were coming. I already knew the answer. A week before the date, Mom called. We'll be at Madison's wedding, she said. No preamble, no apology. We assumed you'd understand. I do, I said. I've always understood. Good. I'm glad you're being mature about this. I hung up and added another document to the folder on my laptop. Screenshots of their messages over the years, the excuses, the dismissals, the patterns. Not for revenge, just for record. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed beside Daniel, his breathing steady, the city humming outside our window. At 2 in the morning, I got up, made tea, and opened my laptop one last time. The folder sat there, waiting. I clicked print. The pages emerged slowly, one by one. Photos, timestamps, messages between Madison and Logan that Claire had recovered from a cloud account Madison didn't know was synced. I collated them carefully, slid them into a manila envelope, and wrote Jacob's name on the front in clean, even letters. Then I set it by the door and went back to bed. When I woke, the sun was already up. It was September 28th, my wedding day, and hers. Our ceremony started at 11. The venue was a small garden overlooking the water, 20 guests, soft music, no fuss. I wore a dress I'd chosen alone, ivory and simple, and carried wildflowers Daniel had picked that morning. When I walked down the aisle, there were no empty seats reserved for people who wouldn't come. Every chair was filled with someone who had chosen to be there. The vows were short, personal. When Daniel slipped the ring on my finger, I felt the weight of it, solid and real. When we kissed, the small crowd clapped, and I realized I wasn't sad. I was free. We took photos by the water, the light soft and golden. My best friend, Jenna, handed me a glass of champagne. "You did it," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "I did." At 1 o'clock, the reception began. We ate, we laughed, we danced. No one mentioned Madison. No one asked about my parents. It was my day, fully and completely. At 3, I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and pulled out my phone. I opened a drafting app and attached the scanned documents from the folder. I wrote a single sentence. "You deserve to know the truth before you say I do." Then I entered Jacob's email, the one I'd found on Madison's tablet months ago, and hit send. The message whooshed into the void. I set my phone down, washed my hands, and returned to the reception. By 4, my phone started buzzing. Text after text, call after call. I didn't check. I turned it off and danced with my husband. Meanwhile, across the city, Madison's wedding was beginning. The estate was grand, decorated in white and gold, 200 guests filling the lawn. Our parents sat in the front row, beaming. Logan stood beside Jacob at the altar, best man and brother, smiling like nothing was wrong. The music started. Madison appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant, triumphant. She took her first step. That's when Jacob's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a reflex, then froze. His face changed, color draining, jaw tightening. He looked at Logan. Logan looked back, confused at first, then panicked. Jacob turned and walked off the altar. The music faltered. Madison stopped midway down the aisle, her smile fracturing. "Jacob?" she called. He didn't answer. He just kept walking, past the guests, past the decorations, past our parents who stood in confusion. Logan followed, calling his name. By the time they reached the parking lot, the argument had started. Voices rising, accusations flying. Someone recorded it. Later I'd see the video, shaky and distant, but clear enough. Jacob holding up his phone, Logan stammering, Madison running after them in her dress, tripping on the hem. The ceremony never finished. Guests left in confusion. Our parents tried to smooth it over, but there was nothing left to smooth. The truth had arrived, time-stamped and undeniable, delivered at the exact moment it would matter most. By evening, my phone was still off. I didn't need to see the fallout. I already knew. The morning after, I woke to silence. Daniel was still asleep beside me, sunlight streaming through the curtains. I reached for my phone, hesitated, then turned it on. 73 notifications. Messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails from my parents. Texts from Madison. Each one more frantic than the last. I didn't open them. Not yet. I made coffee, slow and deliberate, and sat by the window. The city below was waking up, the streets filling with people starting their Sunday. Somewhere out there, Madison was waking up too, her wedding ruined, her secrets exposed. I didn't feel victorious. I felt calm. At noon, I finally opened the messages. Mom's voice was shrill on the voicemail. "What did you do?" Jacob called off the wedding. "Madison is devastated. Call me back right now." Dad's was colder. "This is your fault, Ava. I don't know what you said, but you've ruined everything." Madison's texts were incoherent, a mix of rage and desperation. "You did this. You've always been jealous. I'll never forgive you." I deleted them all. Then I drafted a single response and sent it to the family group chat. I didn't ruin anything. I just made sure Jacob knew the truth before he married someone who was lying to him. If you want someone to blame, look at Madison. I muted the chat and set the phone down. An hour later, Jenna called. "Have you seen the video?" she asked. "No. It's everywhere. Madison and Logan are all over social media. People are calling it the wedding disaster of the year." I closed my eyes. "Good. Are you okay?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I said. "I really am." That afternoon, Daniel and I went for a walk. The air was crisp, the leaves just starting to turn. We didn't talk about Madison or my parents or the wedding that didn't happen. We just walked, hand in hand, through the city that had become my home. When we got back to the apartment, there was a voicemail from my mother. Her tone was different this time, smaller. "Ava, we need to talk. Please call me back." I didn't, not that day. I needed the space, the silence, the distance. 3 days later, my parents showed up at my door. I almost didn't let them in. But Daniel touched my shoulder, a silent reassurance, and I opened the door. They stood there, smaller somehow, their faces drawn. "Can we come in?" Mom asked. I stepped aside. We sat in the living room, the air thick with unsaid things. Finally, Dad spoke. "We owe you an apology." I didn't respond. "We didn't realize," Mom continued, her voice shaking. "We didn't see how we treated you, how we always put Madison first." "You saw," I said quietly. "You just didn't care." Mom's face crumpled. "That's not true." "It is," I said. "And you know it." The silence stretched. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Madison told us the truth. About Logan. About everything. We confronted her, and she admitted it." "Good," I said. "Jacob deserved to know before he made the biggest mistake of his life." "But, did you have to do it that way?" Mom asked. "On her wedding day, I looked at her, really looked at her. She set her wedding on my day to humiliate me. I just made sure the truth came out when it mattered. If that ruined her day, that's on her, not me." They didn't argue. They couldn't. "We want to make this right," Dad said finally. "We want to be better." I nodded slowly. "Then prove it. Not with words, with actions." "How?" Mom asked. "Show up," I said. "Not just for Madison, for me. And understand that if you can't, I'm okay without you. I've built a life where I don't need your approval anymore." They left soon after, the weight of my words hanging between us. I didn't know if they'd change. I didn't know if I'd let them back in fully. But I'd set the boundary, clear and firm. That evening, I sat with Daniel on the couch, his arm around me. "You think they'll actually change?" he asked. "Maybe," I said. "But it doesn't matter anymore. I'm not waiting for them to see me. I already see myself." He kissed my forehead. "I'm proud of you." "Me too," I whispered. Over the next few months, my parents did try. Small gestures at first. A text asking how I was. An invitation to dinner, just the three of us. They came to our apartment once, brought flowers, stayed for an hour. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't erased years of neglect, but it was something. Madison, on the other hand, disappeared from my life entirely. No calls, no texts, no apologies. I heard through family that she and Logan had ended things, that Jacob had moved to another city, that she was staying with a friend and avoiding everyone. I didn't reach out. There was nothing left to say. One evening, 6 months after the wedding, I was going through old photos when I found one from my 10th birthday. Me standing alone beside the cake, Madison's arm reaching into the frame toward the candles. I stared at it for a long time, then closed the album and put it away. That version of me didn't exist anymore. The girl who stayed small, who folded herself into nothing, who waited to be seen, she was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned that silence could be strength, that patience could be power, and that the best revenge wasn't loud or cruel. It was simply living well, on your own terms, without waiting for permission. Daniel found me by the window, looking out at the city lights. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Nothing," I said, smiling. "And everything." He pulled me close. "You're okay?" "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "I really am." The wedding Madison tried to ruin became the day I chose myself. The evidence I sent wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And sometimes, the truth is the quietest, most powerful thing you can give. If this story stayed with you, stay for the next one. Every quiet revenge hides a reckoning. Every reckoning starts with someone who was underestimated, finally choosing themselves. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment telling me if you've ever had to set boundaries with family, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. New stories every week where the overlooked become unstoppable. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.